before I move on, I have to bring in the Hobbit cheese and just say Gollum loves this cheese. He loves heart-shaped panel and all the Hobbit cheese in it. Even the fat Hobbit cheese.
Press start.
My best friend Candace, at that Candace girl, asked, what is the best adaptation from a book to a TV series or miniseries?
You know, it is one of the most brilliant series ever, and it's the first BBC series I actually watched, Sherlock. And it is based on the adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. There are only 3 episodes, but they're each an hour and a half long, starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, who have both gone on to do some pretty incredible stuff. I mean, especially Cumberbatch. And yeah, I think it is a great adaptation because it modernizes Holmes in a good way, but also it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like a gimmick. Like Elementary feels like a total gimmick. And like, we're going to change Watson into a woman who's going to be played by Lucy Liu for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Same thing with Moriarty, who's Marjorie Tyrell, which that's actually one of the good parts of that. And I like Johnny Lee Miller, but that show is just, it is nothing to the BBC Sherlock.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought Sherlock up because I fully intended to talk about Sherlock. That show is amazing. Like, that's a contender right there for better than the book even. And I love Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I love Sherlock Holmes. That is by far my favorite version of Sherlock Holmes. Benedict Cumberbatch is so, like, Sherlock Holmes is, like, he's not the most, like, socially, like, the best most charismatic dude. Like, he's a weird dude. He's smarter than everybody, condescending, and that's what Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes is. He's also a junkie, which I feel like they do a good job of dealing with on that show, but not harping on it and making it the whole thing, because I don't think we need that either. It would be a total downer. I love the way that they have the friendship between John and Sherlock on the show. I think that those two dudes have amazing chemistry together. I love both of them individually, but together it's magic. Like, they belong together. I'm so glad they put them together in The Hobbit. They're excellent. And yeah, that show is beautiful. I love Stephen Moffat's, the way he dealt with it, and even more credit probably goes to Mark Gatiss, who also Sherlock's brother Mycroft on the show. That dude is running that show. Like, Moffat is doing it with him, but that is Mark Gatiss's baby right there. It's just brilliant. I can't wait for the next season, but unfortunately I think it's the last season of the show, and they just finished filming it, so.
And they're very smart about the way they go about things. They translate, I feel like, almost seamlessly the old stories into a modern setting. I thought what they did with the Hounds of Baskerville was brilliant. It took me, like, the first episode, I was like, meh, because traditionally it was kind of more of a supernatural story, but the way that they did it for Sherlock, I later thought was kind of ingenious. The whole, like, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the whole, when Sherlock goes away for a while, that was brilliantly pulled off. And if you're a fan of the, more traditional Victorian era, they even give you an episode that's set in Victorian era, and everyone is, the characters are exactly the same because they work in both settings.
Seamless. Another thing, like, I appreciate that they focus so much on the actual stories too, not just like taking the characters and then coming up with stories, but doing actual Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories and adapting them to modern day. I think it's cool. And I cannot finish this conversation without talking about Moriarty on Sherlock, because the love that I have for this man's portrayal of Moriarty, there are no words. He is brilliant. I love every fucking second of him. He's hilarious. He's terrifying. He should be playing the Joker. I've been saying this for a while. Moriarty for Joker. But I love that fucking guy. He's so good. Like, every moment that he's on screen, I'm literally like...
I think I would have to go with Game of Thrones, obviously. I
I'm a huge fan of the Game of Thrones, as you guys know. And I read the books. I read all the books, and I just, we just said, like you said earlier, that season 1 was very true to the source material of book 1. And I think they've done a great job throughout. I know some of us have been complaining about how things have changed, but like Tom was saying, it's so in depth, and there's so many characters, and you can have that butterfly effect that I think Kimber, one of you guys, said it, but you have that Kimber said, you take one thing out, then to cause ripple effect and affect everything else. So, and eventually you can't just go completely to the book, because they're all so involved and so much details are engrossed in it that true fans like us, we always say, we kind of miss out on that. The theories that all the fans make from the books too, we kind of hurts us. Like we were saying, we're kind of spoiled by what all the theories we've been made, and we kind of got disappointed by what we saw, especially with the Arya storyline that we were saying and all that. But I still think they've been doing a great job with the show, and I don't really have that many complaints about it. So.
Yeah, I think that there are some things that I like on the show better than in what I've read in the book so far, even. My number one thing is that now that I'm reading the books, the armor is so fucking amazing in the books, the way that I picture it. They just, are in these, decked out, freaking, red enameled, outfits with, all of them have, the Hound has a cool helmet, but all of them have cool helmets in the books. If you're a Baratheon, you have, crazy awesome, Staghorn. If you're a Lannister, you have a helmet that looks like a lion or whatever, and that's the one thing that visually I wish that there could be more of. And I understand it, because I'm sure that the costumes, because they are very amazing on the show, cost a fortune, and it would cost even more of a fortune to do it the way that it intended. But that and them not being on horseback as much are the two things that I wish were in there more, but that's not a long list of complaints,
I haven't had the chance to really read these books yet, but I absolutely love the Dresden Files. The series is fantastic. It's a lot of fun, and I love the actor that plays Harry Dresden. He's in, I think, Arrow now. And I love Bob, his little ghostly servant person. In general, I love modern occult fantasy. I think it's just the most fun ever. You have so many elements of pop culture integrating with fantasy and all sorts of other cool stuff. What would a dragon do? Shadowrun, for example, is one of my favorite RPG settings, because it's in the year 2070, you have dragons that run mega corporations, and they have to pay for magical security because there are mages that would just astral project into your office to steal corporate secrets, that kind of stuff. So I love the idea of modern and fantasy integrating with each other, because maybe a dwarf really does need a day job or something while he's going to night school to finish his blacksmithing correspondence course.
It's so hard for me to pick something, just because there's so many mini-series or television series that I know exist, but I haven't read the books for. So my default answer is the 1980s adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that the BBC did. It's so bad though.
It's Doctor Who level.
Yeah,
worse.
Way worse, way low budget. Zaphod is a paper mache head for his second head. But the narration is really funny.
I wasn't sure if anime or comic books were allowed. I know it's my question, but
yeah, go for it.
Yeah? Okay, because I have 1 and the one that's regular. Okay. My anime manga my anime manga selection is Paradise Kiss by Ai Yazawa.
That's the only manga I like ever in the world.
Dude, if you like that, you should watch Nana. Nana is by the same lady. I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
That's so crazy. Because I was just thinking about that when you were talking about manga before you said it. You just blew
So yeah, man. Paradise Kiss is, I don't know. It's so I read the manga first. Luckily, because I was able to appreciate the anime that much more. Now, if you've never read the manga, the anime will still get you through. It'll definitely do the job. But her artwork, first of all, is just glorious. Her take on fashion is just mind blowing. Her pacing and like each panel is like a joy to look at. Like it's just delightful. Even in the moments when like the static kind of starts and things get really difficult for your main characters and you start seeing relationships get tested and all that stuff. Like even as that happens, like it's still just wonderful. Like it's hard not to read it all in one sitting. Yeah. It's super compelling. And when I watched Paradise Kiss the show, I was like, they're really like what are they going to do with the music? Because sometimes the music is like really bad or like really crazy in anime and stuff. You're just like, what? Why would you do that? So I was very nervous about how they were going to proceed. So the end song of this like super posh, super high fashion, super like punk rock love story is Franz Ferdinand's "Do You Wanna," which is awesome, and it has this like really great beat, and like the closing credits are just like all the characters rocking out and like bopping together and dancing, and it's something that like these characters would totally do were you to like read into that in the books. So like it's just perfect. Like it's pitch perfect. The voices are perfect. Like the fashion is perfect. Like the pacing is perfect. Like it's just such a great adaptation, man. Like really satisfying. And then for my
we're talking about manga translations. I have to weigh in. I love the manga Full Metal Alchemist. And when the first series came out, I was a little disappointed. But when Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood came out, I like wept for joy. Like that thing is like some of the people will know if they know who Nina is, they'll know that it's a heartbreaking story. And seeing it the second time around, it doesn't change anything. They do an even better job. Oh my god, Joe's messaging me in the chat. That anime is so good. I want to read the Attack on Titan manga because I really do like the Attack on Titan series, so I'm curious about that. But what was your other?
My other is Roots by Alex Haley. The old one, not the new one. I haven't watched that one yet. When I read it, I mean, the book is, I believe, somewhere between 900 and 1,200 pages. So it's a behemoth. It's gigantic. It's like fucking this thick. It's really... Yeah, like it's a really serious tome. It's like a super serious book, and obviously like the miniseries is super serious as well. But it's just so well acted, and I feel like I was really perplexed when they decided to create the new one, because I was like, why do we need to bring this story to a new generation? Like the first one hasn't really aged, like other than knowing that LeVar Burton is now an older gentleman, like it still holds up to me. Like the cinematography is beautiful, like the lighting is really nice, like the set design is nice, like it's really, really true to the source material. And I just feel like they just overall did like a really great job adapting that one, which like again, it was very challenging.
Dexter. Now I'm only just getting into Dexter the book. The show is pretty amazing. I'm just getting into the book, and from what I've gotten into so far, again, like it's really satisfying. Like the direction in which I'm reading them, like show first and then the book. It's I don't know. Yeah.
I have some gripes about the show compared to the book with Dexter. My biggest complaint is that I know everybody loves Deborah, but I do not love the actress who plays Deborah. It is very weird casting to me if you are familiar with book Deborah. Like the whole point of Deborah's character is that she's supposed to be this like extremely like sex bomb, hot, like goddess, like Megan Fox looking, dark haired vixen, like curvaceous, like sexy, boobed up vixen who has like a foul mouth. And like, while the actress that they picked for the show is a good actress, and it's nothing against like her performance or anything, just physically the way she, like completely like changes the whole character, because she's like this tall, skinny, awkward like tomboy, and not this like hot bombshell, which completely changes the dynamic of like how her foul mouth and the way that she acts works as a character. Mm-hmm. I do not think she's hot. I have to disagree with you. It is very like, she, even if you do think she's hot, she's not the aesthetic of how that character is designed. She is supposed to be like super hot, like skinny waist and big hips and big boobs and like just like super stunning face and like dark hair. Like it's just not Deb to me. But it is a good show. The last season is effing terrible. It kind of gets worse as it goes along. for me on the show. The books are very different. The books, it's like less of a metaphorical dark passenger and more of like an... Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's less of like a more metaphorical thing and more of a literal thing in the books almost. There's definitely like a little more of a supernatural feel to the books.
Okay, so I've got two of everything today. I'm going to give a special shout out to Dilbert. I love the Dilbert cartoon series. It's so amazing. I love the comic strip. So good. But for my actual answer, once again, I've brought this up on this show before, but the answer is Tintin.
Nice.
Growing up as a kid, when my mum started taking me to the public library up in Wagga, South Wales, as a kid, I'd look at all these books, and I wasn't really into books at the time. I think I was around probably 6, 7. But they had this big tub that was full of Asterix and Tintin books. And so anytime I'd go there, I'd gravitate straight to the Asterix and Tintin. Now, Asterix, they've tried to do movies, they've tried to do TV adaptations, and they've all mostly been horrible. It's sad because I love Asterix probably. But Tintin and the box set of the cartoon series is one of the best things that I think I've ever seen. It translates so well from the actual book. All the voices and things are all amazing.
For me, it's The Strain from Guillermo del Toro. And because I really love the show, I still remember seeing the pilot was like, oh, it's exactly where I left off. Because I only read the half of the book. I was like, okay, that's enough. And then when I see the show, I was like, I really like also how they touch, even though throughout the whole series about the story about the master, the Strigoi, the professor, and all of the characters. I still remember my girlfriend at the time, I told her about the pilot, and she saw the pilot of the show, and she read all of the 3 books, and I told her, tell me everything. She told me all the storyline and everything, what's going to happen next.
I do want to at least mention the Shannara Chronicles on, I think, MTV. I haven't finished the full season yet, which is part of the reason I'm hesitant to make this claim. What I have seen so far has been incredibly accurate and has really done a lot more to kind of separate this story from its kind of Lord of the Rings clone sort of background, because part of that series is that it's supposed to be taking place in like the future of our modern world after like an apocalyptic event.
Yeah.
So they really have kind of driven that home, I feel, in this TV series more so than the books even did, because the books kind of have that in the background, but it doesn't feel like that's as major a focus as what they've done so far on the TV show.
You're not the first person to tell me that the show is interesting. Unfortunately, it just has this MTV stigma around it that I am not interested in the slightest. Should I get over it? Just give it a shot?
I mean, I didn't get MTV necessarily from this show when I was watching it. I got basically like a basic cable Game of Thrones instead of HBO Game of Thrones. And I mean, that's to be expected of any kind of fantasy series, that you're going to end up comparing it to something that currently exists. But I think they've still done a pretty good job of what I've seen so far. I've only seen roughly the first half or something of accurately going through the story, even though I have to point out, for those that haven't seen it, it's kind of weird that they did this. They chose to go with book 2 of the series to start off with instead of book 1. It was a very bold choice, but I also understand it because book 1 is very much kind of like a Lord of the Rings clone in it's the same. There's like a wizard that shows up. They have to go as an adventuring party to get a certain object to a certain place and so on. It's very much like the Fellowship of the Rings, and the second one is not, and I think they decided, let's just skip any kind of comparison like that.
Hannibal, for sure. I love Hannibal.
Yeah, I love Hannibal. I really hope they bring it to Netflix, because like the first season of that show in particular had some like of the most amazing visuals I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think it had like the best cinematography for a series. I can't really think of one that tops it. It's amazing visually. It's an amazing show. But like from what I've seen, they have some messed up deal with Amazon, so they aren't able to go to Netflix or anyone else. Amazon's kind of holding them down.
They said, I think they said if they are going to do Hannibal, it's going to be years from now.
That sucks. It was really good.
But yeah, I saw Mads Mikkelsen bought like 500 pairs of tidy whities for my friend.
All right.
Like an insane amount, like he did all the stock they had of tidy whities.
Nice. Well, our last question tonight is, what book would you like to see adapted to film and why?
Right. So I have a book that has been adapted to film already, although I've got another book in the series that I'd like to see. Now, what I'm talking about is, now, I saw this before I read any of Jeffrey Deaver's books, The Bone Collector. Now, I really liked The Bone Collector. I really enjoyed it and things when it came out. And then I found The Bone Collector for like $2. It was on sale at a shop, and I bought it and I read it. And it was like, there's so many changes to it and things, and I really got into that series. Like, I don't read a lot of books now. Basically, the only books at the moment that I buy and have to buy when they come out is any Lincoln Rhyme books that come out, and there's also a spin-off series about Catherine Dance. So, having read the whole series now and things, and I think it was 4 books in that I realised that Lincoln Rhyme's actually white. And I was so taken aback because I'm like, but wait, it's Denzel Washington. It's like, I'm like, not that makes it good or bad or anything, but it was just so, it's like, like when I worked out that because I'd been picturing him for the first 3 books as being like this black character, and then when you work out he's actually white, I'm like, wait, hang on, what? And so it sort of put this weird image in my head.
That's funny.
Also, I think Angelina Jolie was really badly miscast. I don't enjoy her, having read all the books, as Amelia Sachs. Because I've always had a thing for redheads, and they describe the character in the books as like this redhead and like all these little things. And Angelina Jolie with the bad dye job, I'm just like, no.
I think it would be cool if they did an Albert Camus book. I don't know if you've read The Stranger or The Fall. Those would be really interesting as a movie. I don't know who. I never gave it thought really who would direct, but I mean, it would have to be something weird, like a Jim Jarmusch kind of movie or something like just mostly narrative, probably mostly talking. But it would be an interesting movie to do.
I have one. It's technically 2 books, but they're part of a series. The role-playing game I play, Pathfinder, puts out novels. Their Pathfinder Tales line. There's a set of those novels that surround a character named Celine Godefar, who is a atheist in a world where gods walk among men type thing. But he's an atheist who had like a crisis moment, and made a deal with one of the gods to save his wife. And then the books are about him solving crimes for that church. And the goddess he works for is a goddess of death. And the only 2 books I've heard of so far are Death's Heretic, which is about a man who bought an elixir to prolong his life, was assassinated. But the whole reason he was even called in is the soul never made it to the boneyard, which is like the afterlife. It was abducted somewhere, and he's supposed to track down where the soul is and that kind of stuff. And then the second one is called The Redemption Engine, where a city named Karamaga is the central point of this huge situation where a bunch of souls are just going missing. They're being stolen. And to the deities and stuff, souls are kind of like viewer numbers, so to speak. Like, it's how the different deities get soldiers in power. It's their likes, it's their followers, it's that kind of stuff. So
Interesting.
But it's kind of like taking something like a pulp noir story and putting it in the medieval fantasy.
Cool.
And it's really cool stuff. The first half of the book is usually exploring whatever city he's in, and then the second half is jumping between different planes of existence and actually literally going to heaven and hell, and a city called Axis, which is like a point of law and order. It's a cat. Anyway, but yeah, they're really good. The character is awesome, and it's just fantastic stuff.
Awesome. How about you, Ashley?
I would love to see the rest of the Hitchhiker's Guide, at least the books 2 and 3 adapted into film. And maybe So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, but then like when you get into Mostly Harmless, then it's kind of I did not enjoy the 5th book as much as the other ones, but yeah, definitely Restaurant at the End of the Universe and Light the Universe and everything, proper adaptations of that, which I think they would have to just reboot the first movie and just pretend that some of those things didn't happen. I don't know if they would be able to. Well, then maybe they could bring back some of the people. I don't know how they would handle it.
So I'm gonna make like a pitch one. I want to J.K. Rowling to write about the first war between Voldemort before the birth of Harry Potter, and then to adapt it to a movie.
Definitely for me, it's going to be the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. It's a series that's been around since I think the late 80s or so. And it is the 7th highest selling fantasy series of all time. And all the ones ahead of it have already got adaptations. So, you could kind of say it's its turn. Currently, it is, I believe, rumored that it should be getting a TV series soon that is unrelated to the horrible FX 2 in the morning fiasco that they had last year. Mostly because since that event, they have supposedly worked out who has the rights to the series now. So, but yeah, the movie. I mean, the book series spans like 14 different books. Obviously, the movies you'd have to probably condense that a little bit. In some ways, it would work better as a TV series. But there's tons of material to work with. The level of detail is amazing. One organization alone, like the White Tower, which is like kind of like a magical organization in this series. It was reported that the author has like 1,000 named characters for that one organization alone. So the world is just waiting to be like taken and like really like worked with.
Yeah,
for sure.
They did the TV show, the miniseries 11/22/63 with James Franco, and I ended up watching that show, and I actually really liked the show, but I felt like it could have been done in a movie and done really well. I thought the budget for the movie or for the TV show was pretty good, but I think if they took their time, made it about a 2-hour movie, that they could end up doing something great, even if they, obviously recast everybody, whatever. But I thought that show was really good. But from what my friend told me about the actual book, there was a lot of stuff missed out on the show that I feel like probably budget constraints, actually put into effect. That's why. So I feel like that'd be a good book to actually adapt to a film.
Again, I'm going to do 2 real quick. Keep it short, my best. So there was this comic. So it's now a series of graphic novels, either way a book. Crimson. And it's by Humberto Ramos. And it's a really fucking fantastic vampire story. I super love it. And I think it would... I don't know. I think it would translate really great into a movie. I've never gone as far as thinking like who would direct it and who would star in it, but just the storyline is I don't know. It's super movie worthy. I mean, it starts with vampires. It kind of seeps into the supernatural bit. Then it kind of turns into like religious. What do you call it? I don't want to be rude, but like.
I mean, I guess it's mythology. Yeah, technically it's mythology.
Yeah. So. I don't know. It's rad, and it would be an amazing movie. The other one I was going to say, again, real quick. I think if there was a film adaptation of Where the Sidewalk Ends, but like directed like through the eyes of Michel Gondry, like that would be fucking awesome. And then you could immediately do a sequel with A Light in the Attic and just keep Michel Gondry. And it could just be a series of shorts, but I don't know. Like I think that would be
like vignettes?
Little vignettes.
That would actually be pretty cool because each poem could be its own video, and that's like how he started his career directing.
Yeah. I mean, like even
videos.
A Light in the Attic
That'd be cool.
Wouldn't even have to be Michel Gondry. Like you could hand it off to another like
Spike Jonze. Although like I don't know how I feel about Where the Water Ends are still.
I like
the jury's still out on that one.
I like.
My choice for this section is Goodnight Moon, starring Shia LaBeouf. It might not be a long movie, but then we could just make up like an extra 30 minutes to prelude it, and then we can extend the movie. Maybe Batgirl will do it. It'll be great. My favorite book of all time is American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and it's already being adapted into a television series.
How about that trailer?
What's that?
How about that trailer? Did you like it?
We didn't see it yet.
What? Hold on, guys. I'm gonna look up the trailer. The only thing I've seen from it is that they've casted Gillian Anderson as Media, who is, because America is this melting pot of religions. They have like these religious avatars that walk the earth. And the thing about like it's odd because like Native Americans didn't really have religion in like it was never established. There was more of like everything has a spirit. Like they're not really like they have a hard time existing, and like so this new wave of religion like media and television and the internet start coming in. So the only thing I've seen is the casting for Gillian Anderson. So yeah. I'm really excited.
Good Omens too.
Good Omens is another one coming out by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, but American Gods has the same showrunners as Hannibal. And what's really good about American Gods is the visuals. And if you've seen Hannibal, you can see how they can, nail those either beautifully constructed shots or like trippy transitions. Like I'm really excited.
I don't think that the trailer is going to disappoint you. I haven't yet read that book, either of them actually. They're on my list. I know, I'm a disappointment.
I know, and after I would go American Gods straight to Anansi Boys, which is
okay.
It's not a sequel. It's a sequel in the sense that it comes after it, but it's a different character in the same world after the events.
Awesome. Okay.
But yeah, it's a really good book.
Kindred by Octavia Butler, and she's like one of the most preeminent African American sci-fi authors, and it's pretty phenomenal. The topic of that book, like the plot, is that there's an African American woman in the late 70s, and she's I think a professor, and her husband is a white guy, and they're super in love. They have a nice time. I think he's also a professor. Like they're an intellectual couple, and they're kind of wealthy, and she lives a pretty comfortable life that she's worked hard for. And she gets transported to the past, to like before civil rights, before the Civil War. Like I want to say it's like the 1850s or no, the 1830s, I think. Somewhere in the early 1800s, she gets transported back there onto the plantation where her ancestors once were. But she's this feminist. She's like this like really, bra burning, like really well educated woman. And she has to then deal with like what slaves used to deal with and like go through all these processes. And like she understands her husband as her lover, but like in this day and age, like people who looked like her husband were not necessarily her friends. So it's like there's culture shock, like really like literal culture shock. And it's like a really like complex and awesome time travel book. And it's like really kind of like how About Time is this, time travel book. I mean, time travel movie that's very much like a passive sci-fi. This is also a very passive sci-fi where like that it's sci-fi and you realize that it's sci-fi, but like it's not, there's no aliens, you're not in space, like there's nothing crazy about it. It's just something else. You know what I mean? So I think they should make that into a miniseries for HBO, honestly. Like I feel like that would be a pretty good bridge for like people who are into historical fiction, especially because there are a lot of people that do Game of Thrones more for the political and like the faux historical aspect and less for like the dragons and the fantasy. So like you would be able to catch those viewers too, but that's just my idea.
So my pick definitely deals with like someone being out of place in the society around them as well. I'm gonna pick my favorite book and choose Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
Oh yeah.
Brave New World's a super important book. I love dystopian futures. I definitely think that's one of the more interesting ones. I think there are themes throughout that book that are still important and way ahead of their time. Aldous Huxley is crazy for his time, just like Lovecraft. But I think that if they did something now, which actually doing some research, I saw that they were talking about developing Brave New World for sci-fi with Steven Spielberg attached to it, which would be awesome. I think he would be a great choice for something like that. It's an important book again, like I said, and I think you need an important director to be able to deal with material that is so well known by so many people. But I just think Brave New World, it's surprising that we don't have a really good representation of that book on film already. And I think that now is a good time with the themes of that book to do something like that. I don't know if you guys, like, if anyone hasn't read that book, you definitely should. It's kind of hard to explain. There's a lot going on. They're in like a society where everything is very like meticulously, like they're placed into like a caste system of like alphas and betas, all the way down to like epsilons and stuff, where that determines like where their status is in life and what they do. And they kind of get like spokes thrown in when they deal with this sort of like savage type person. And there's like themes with drugs, with their like soma kind of like controlling them and stuff. I think that there's a lot that you could do to parallel some of the stuff that's going on in society right now and stay a lot with that story. So that's my pick.